Hiya folks, it's Carl again. I want to thank all of you who responded to my last post with tips and advice on how to deal with my little problem. I've spent the last few hours following some of your suggestions and things have gotten pretty strange. More than they already were anyway. To begin with, about the entity. I simply don't know what happened to it or where it went. It kept knocking on my door for a long time until it stopped out of nowhere. A few minutes later, the police arrived with their bright and noisy sirens. I guess it must have been enough to alert the intruder to their presence. Fortunately, they believed me, since some of the neighbours claimed to have seen somebody heading to my house regularly in the past few weeks, and knowing my reclusive nature, they suspected that something was wrong. The inspection, however, was unfruitful. No sign, trace, or the slightest clue of the presence of the unwelcomed guest. The officers have reassured me that they will keep an eye on things, and 2 police officers decided to stand guard at the property's entrance. Hey, benefits of living in a small town, I guess. I think the presence of other people helped keep whatever it was away from my house for the rest of the night, and who would have thought it? You were right to say that maybe I just needed to make some friends. I was definitely fed up with it. My productivity was dropping, and after that last scare I had decided that I was going to do something about it. The first thing that I decided to do was seek the help of a specialist in paranormal phenomena. I got in touch with a local medium who was willing to come to my house. He spent hours meditating and trying to communicate with the entity, but couldn't extract any information from it. He mentioned that the presence was powerful, but also enigmatic. Gradually the figure took shape, as he said, and he gave a description. It was a man, middle-aged, who had died in this house a few years ago, and was now stuck here. He seemed to harbour some vague feelings towards me, an obsessor, as the medium put it. He added that his job didn't involve expelling these obsessors. It was something of great power and required specialist individuals, but he told me about a friend of his who had more experience. Believe me, it's really not cheap. He performed an exorcism ritual in my house, and during the process, the whole house trembled, and strange murmurs echoed through the air. It seemed like something was resisting being expelled, but finally, after hours of prayers and rituals, the sense of presence disappeared, along with most of the money in my bank account. Apparently the entity had left, and for the first time in weeks, I was finally able to relax and sleep without fear. But if it had ended there, I wouldn't be writing this. Earlier today, while I was lying in bed, shortly after falling asleep, I started hearing some noises. With no spirit or intruder in sight at the window, I gathered the courage and went downstairs, making sure to turn on the lights. When I was on the 3rd step, however, I began to feel unwell. Something about the situation was telling me that I should turn off the lights, and so I did. After that, I was standing in complete silence, waiting for something to happen. This time, not 1, but 2 shadows started to approach, coming from the dense woods. They weren't really like the Watcher's shadow, though. They were slender, stealthy, almost crouching, but with something even more different. Their movement was accompanied by steps, heavy steps on the grass. They stopped at the front door, and I held my breath until I could hear one of them whispering, "Sure it's clear?" While the other replied, "Yeah, he's not there anymore. That weirdo is alone in there now. So shut up before you wake him up." My doorknob started moving slowly, and I could hear the click of the internal gears turning. A shiver ran down my spine. Whatever the Watcher was, it seemed that I had made a grave mistake trying to expel it. As quietly as I could, I ran back to my room and placed a chair to block the door. Not that I had much faith that it would actually stop them. Like an ironic remake of the incident from the previous night, I was locked in my closet again, trying to control my hyperventilation and waiting for what felt like an eternity for the police to arrive. Again. Although, this time, they seemed a lot less convinced of the urgency of my situation. I'm leaving this here as a record, in case they don't arrive in time, and with a warning that sometimes it's better not to mess with forces beyond our reach. I know it's probably a little late for this, but does anyone know how to summon an entity? See what I meant in the first part about there maybe being more? I certainly hope so, because that is a fantastic cliff to leave us hanging off. Personally, I don't reckon the original entity is gone for good, but I guess we'll have to see. Hopefully, in part 3. See you all in the next one. Keep it spooky.